Hi, welcome to another Metamorphosist Media character design video. Today we are working on a fawn or a satyr for a D&D campaign I'm playing online. As you can see, the default came with deer antlers. I am changing that into more probably demon horns, frankly. They are reminiscent of the artwork in the book. I'm using the satyr race that's presented in the Theros setting book. This is the character is Evridiki, Kiki, Katsaros. Evridiki is Greek for Eurydice, Orpheus's wife that he tried to retrieve from the underworld and failed because he looked back at her. I do all of my fantasy character naming using real world names from a site called Behind the Name. I usually just randomize it, but if I am using a character from a specific mythology, like a satyr is Greek, I looked at Greek names and Eurydice and Orpheus. That story was appropriate because this is a undead patron warlock. So I wanted to go with that. So her name is Evridiki, which probably isn't very common, but the diminutive, the nickname for it is Kiki, so she goes by Kiki. And last name is Katsaros, which is Greek for, it's either black hair or curly hair, I forget. I give her black curly hair. So this is Evridiki Katsaros. As a warlock, she wears light armor and studded, and is in this case it has piles of bones at her feet on the base, the stage they call it in Hero Forge. The undead patron warlock has a form of dread ability which changes your appearance, allows you to cause fear, gives you temporary hit points, and a bunch of other things. So I'm actually going to make two figures for her. This is the natural, the satyr form, and then the form of dread. In the example, it says that you take on, your appearance changes that to reflect your patron. And if you have a mummy lord, for example, as your patron, you might appear to be bandaged, that sort of thing. So it does change your gear, it does change your appearance pretty drastically, and can cause fear. Kiki is, her patron is a vampire, so I'm going to have that new form be dark and scary and some blood effects and that sort of thing. But in the meantime, this is normal form, I suppose. And wielding the Great Club, warlocks get simple weapons, and it's not actually a bad choice. This figure's was a little tricky. You saw some wiggling of the head around, trying to make it so the horns and the ears and the hair don't interfere with the club. So it gets it up sort of behind your ear like in a baseball stance, but, there's a horn in the way. Going with traditional dark browns and red tones in her normal form, it's going to shift in dread form. It's going to be recognizable as her, but darker. One thing I have noticed is a lot of the custom color work, and when I get into decals, it happens quite a lot, is done with a pop-up, which for some reason this is not recording. So sometimes it just freezes. I'm actually working in a second, like a little pop-up window. But you'll see that in a little bit. So, yeah. I think that's what's going on here. Given the pose, there's a lot of twisting and turning and that sort of thing, and I did not mean to do weathered bronze on her backpack. I think I was aiming for the buckles and just misclicked. But that will adjust. Now, because this game is played entirely online with players all over the country, this these figures are actually really handy to sort of represent my character. I can obviously describe a character at a table, show drawings, that sort of thing. But this is a better, in my opinion, a better representation of this is what my character looks like. And I share it on the Discord and everyone can see. So yeah, that's one of the adventures. As you can see down below my picture over here, Cassie Louise White is a episode that appeared last week, I think. I recorded the Hero Forge content a few episodes at a time. I'm doing the voiceover separately. Cassie's already been up and posted and viewed a few times at this point. So I'm recording this Friday, so just a couple of days before this video goes live, and working on that. So this is more or less the finished form of Kiki Katsaros. Yeah, a couple of minor tweaks, but great club, studded leather armor, tends to be dark tones. I think she has stealth proficiency, I think, that sort of thing. One aspect of her design is, and the reason that I went with the undead patron, is Kiki has a very low, her dump stat is constitution. She's got an 8 constitution, so she was sickly as a kid, as a young satyr, and pulled through, and she attributes that to the attention and help from her imaginary friend. Her imaginary friend growing up is her patron. He was in contact with her mentally since back in the day, and that is shaped her philosophy quite a bit. Like, she has the Haunted One background from the Ravenloft book, and has one of her personality traits is she doesn't put trust in divine figures. Some of that is literally since she was, knee-high to a grasshopper, I suppose. There was a vampire lord talking inside her head, and that has influenced that. Because of this distrust, now I'm going to work on the dread form. Because of this distrust, she has a fairly unusual combat style. She believes that if the gods aren't to be trusted, the afterlife is a thing that exists, but it's not all peachy. So she would prefer sentient undeath to actual death, for example, and she tries to minimize her body count. She does have things like Eldritch Blast. She can do damage, but she also uses things like fear and minor illusion to rout the enemy, to convince them that it's not worth the fight, and to she gladly accepts surrender, that sort of thing. She's not a typical D&D murder hobo, let's kill everybody kind of situation. She is only first level. We haven't even played. We've done session 0 at this point. But I have looked at how I'd like her to progress, and she is not picking up area effect spells. There's no accidental damage. There's no innocent bystander collateral damage situations for Kiki. If she's targeting you, she's targeting you. And yeah, so she will kill people that need to die, but she has a pretty specific ideas of what that entails. Now, with a vampire patron, I'm going to make her dread form. She's standing taller. I've changed her posture. She's going to I'm working on getting an Eldritch Blast going on here, but she's going to have the fangs. The cosmetic changes are going to be mostly done in the paint situation. Her armor is going to be darker, that sort of thing. One thing that I did notice working on editing this video is the footage cuts out. sooner than I wanted it to. So we're going to get a pretty good idea of what this is going to look like, but the final form is not actually on footage, which is disappointing. But these take about an hour to build in Hero Forge, and I've already got it done, so I don't want to reshoot it. So we're going to get close enough here. So there it is with Eldritch Blast. I used sort of that fireball effect because the arrow didn't look quite right. Eldritch Blast does force damage at 6th level. Undead Patron Warlocks can do necrotic damage with anything they hit with. If you roll to hit and do damage, you can switch it to necrotic. I'm going to have her probably do almost exclusively necrotic damage after 6th level. I mean, if something has a resistance or something, then it can be regular, whether it's bludgeoning damage from the Great Club or force damage from an Eldritch Blast. But that's her primary damage effect. I'm working in the color mixing tab right now, so you can't see it, unfortunately. There we go. Sort of jumps, and still working at the bugs of this, and I'm almost done with the series. This is episode 7 of 10 in the character design series, so I'll probably be really good at it right by the time I'm finishing. Now, her natural forms armor was browns and reds and weathered bronze, I think, was, or brass was the metallic fittings, that sort of thing. Here I'm going with much more just a straight black and a silver or a platinum cool tone for the metal fittings. It's going to be a little bit more Hellraiser and a little bit less fantasy armor basic kind of vibe. The big tweak that we miss at the end is adjusting one of the, there we go, is adjusting the decals. The full body decal, which is the bottom choice, I'll point it out when we're doing it, can be adjusted, and I do bring it up so it's a blood splatter effect that appears to be originating at her mouth and pouring down her front. As I said, she does have a Vampire Lord patron, and this is designed to scare people, so went a little bit more heavy-handed with that. I went with the black and green for the spell effect to avoid fire, to avoid straight elemental or assumed elemental damage. As I said, it is force, it will become necrotic. Black and green were better than like a blue or a white or a red would have implied something. I would have done a clear, but that's not an option with these because frankly they're 3D printed in a base gray, pretty similar to like her Great Club is in color. That's the color of the thing. I can't make a clear spell effect, unfortunately. And that is the main coloring for her done. I just have to get the, I think I still have her fingernails and the club to do, and her eyes. There we go. Eyes have gone red. Club is colored in. And working in the decals to see what I can figure out. As I said, we don't see the final product, but we get close. You'll see. It's going to appear as a red blood stain. I'm going to darken it and move it to the top of it to her mouth and chin. It should be showing up any second now. I'm also, yep, there we go. I'm also working on her eyes. one of the face paint decals was color across the eyes completely, and I have highlighted the outer edges of that white and made the interior of it her skin tone, so it looks like extra gaunt on the cheekbones. Now, this blood will get darkened, smaller, a little bit smaller, and that bit that's on her chest will be brought up to the mouth. But I don't think I have footage of that. I've looked around and it is gone. Any of these decals that are on the bottom choice here, the sort of blood splatter, are more easily moved. You can do size, scale, that sort of thing. Other ones like the hair, the club, the spell effect, that sort of thing, you can still move them around a little bit, but you don't have all the customization options because it's item specific. You can use things like the hair one is how you added streaks. You saw that in her natural form. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for a GeoGuessr video. Take care. Bye.